Welcome, everybody, back to the MedTech Mentor podcast. This is for people creating, building, and leading in MedTech and the world around it. I'm your host, Crystal Howell, and today I have a conversation that's a bit different, but one I believe that will leave you better than we found you. My guest today is Dr. Tim Rayner. He's an AI philosopher, educator, and founder of SuperEsk, a program that teaches professionals to build custom AI assistants that amplify their expertise, no code required. He holds a PhD in philosophy from the University of Sydney and teaches leading technology disruption in the Executive MBA at UTS Business School, and recently keynoted the Nordic AI for Humanity Summit. In our pre-call, we accidentally spent an hour talking about something that I don't think gets enough airtime. What does it mean to leave an imprint on the world? And this is the part that I love about working with Tim and attending his Super S course, that we're thinking about this not just in our work, but in the way we think and the way we show up. And this is the part that really got me in the AI systems that we build. So I'm often talking about the feeling we leave behind, but I never related that back to the AI systems that we build. And in hindsight, it just feels so obvious. So Tim's central idea, and I love what he calls his cognitive archaeology, the deliberate excavation of your own professional knowledge. It doesn't just live inside our head, but in the systems that we work alongside, and they outlast any single conversation. So Tim, thank you so much. Welcome to the MedTech Mentor podcast.
Thank you, Crystal. I'm really pleased to be here.
Really grateful to have you here as well. As I said, it's a little bit different for us to have a guest that is not deep within medtech, but this is such a timely conversation with just so much that's going on within AI. And, a lot of us are employees in the medtech space. And, this is one of those moments. So as I said, I have a word that I use a lot on the show, which is that feeling that you leave behind when you think about where you want to be, who you want to be with, how you job craft. And before we go anywhere else, I want to ask you, what is the imprint that you're trying to leave?
Oh, wow. That is a really interesting question. Look, the first thing I would say, and I think you've already made this point, is that it's very hard to articulate the imprint that one does make on the world, because it's like our shadow. It's always part of who we are, but we don't we don't tend to see it. It's somewhere behind us, I guess, following in our wake. But it's evident to others. And I guess the imprint that I would most want to make in the world is something that is registered by the people who I care about most and value most. I want to feel like my imprint is something that was valuable and nurturing and enabling and empowering and rewarding for them. Yeah, I guess that is what I want to leave with people. It sounds a bit morbid, really, doesn't it? Talking about the imprint you want to leave.
I mean, I think we're not thinking of it with that finality. I think of it as, the many moments when you interact with someone and they might talk about you later on to one of their friends and the stories that they might share. And I think that when you got towards the end of your answer, which is nurturing, empowering,
enabling,
yes, that I feel like that sums it up. And I bet you that those are really close to your own personal values. The things that you love to get from other people, I'm sure are pretty close to those three words.
I think that's right. What I loved about the way that you introduced the idea of the imprint is that you tied it to the idea of showing up. And I feel that often when people talk about showing up, they use that idea in a fairly literal sense. You have to get out of bed in the morning and you have to go to the meeting and you have to just be present. But I feel that showing up has a deeper, almost existential meaning as well. It's something to do with the way that you you radiate and shine, the presence that you bring to a space. And it's it's a matter of presenting oneself and just just being there for others so that your imprint can establish itself and they can experience it, and your living presence is making its mark in the world. Sorry, that all sounds
Mm.
impossibly vague, doesn't it?
No, I'm picking it up.
Good.
I think that people that are listening will as well. Um, it's like the difference between leading with the head versus the heart, you know?
Mm.
And that was one of the biggest and best surprises that I got in enrolling to Super-esque was the existential philosophical reflections that the likes of Sensei and Supernaut and all of the agents that you created. I felt like I was having this deeply reflective conversation with someone that really was listening and really cared, and it was really wild. And then I almost got into, "Well, I'm sharing a lot here," which is, it's interesting to see because we do circle back to this in some of the questions that I'm gonna ask you a little bit about, um, just kinda not being afraid of that exploration.
Yeah,
I think Yoda says it best, you sometimes you gotta go into the cave you fear, right?
exactly. Exactly. I'm so pleased to hear that the experience of working with those agents was positive for you, because really there's a lot of me in the design of those agents. I don't think they would be what they are if I hadn't invested my own sense of value and sense of what is important in the design of those AI systems.
Yeah, I felt that. I
No, good,
felt
good.
that this is not something off the shelf.
Hmm.
This is
No.
someone, this is personal. And
Mm,
I think that's what, for me and the things that I value, that really struck a chord.
no, good.
Um, uh, Small talk, nah, I'm not into it. Give me deep and meaningful.
Yeah. I'm there. I'm there.
Yeah, yeah. So with that in mind, it's always really interesting to see where people came from, and I'd love for you to take a few minutes and walk me and our listeners back to the beginning and um, the work that you were doing that led you to Super-esque and some of those
Mm,
shifts along the way.
okay. Look, I think, as you've noted, I've spent a lot of my life working in the world of philosophy. I studied philosophy for 15 years and taught it for 5 before deciding that I didn't want to be an academic. But even after leaving philosophy behind, philosophy wasn't done with me, and I I I call myself an AI philosopher on LinkedIn, because I feel there's something sort of very real and true about the way that AI has enabled me to rediscover and repurpose the philosophical mindsets and dispositions and learnings that I acquired through all that study so many years ago. But I'll come back to that. To respond to your question directly, uh, my origin story. I think I was always a philosophical kid. I always had a philosophical disposition, and as I grew up in a fairly bland, ordinary sort of middle class suburban environment, and it was a place to be a kid. But as long as I recall, I always felt this vague sense of dissatisfaction with I guess, the set of options that my middle class life kind of presented me. I always felt there must be something more to this life we're living. And when I started studying philosophy at university, it was like a window or a set of windows had been opened up in my mind, and suddenly I could see that the world was so deep and rich and wild and full of mystery, and furthermore, that some of the most amazing, intelligent, and interesting people throughout history in so many different cultures and so many different time periods had literally spent their lives exploring this wild, unmapped territory in search of fundamental answers to real questions that are important to all of us. I mean, what are human beings? What is consciousness? What is the nature of reality? What is goodness? What is truth? What is virtue? And I really, looking through these windows, I felt like I was really touching base um, with reality in a deep way, and to an extent that I hadn't felt capable of doing before. And it felt like coming home, really, being introduced to philosophy. And I just wanted to stay in that space and live there forever. Um, but then I discovered that being a philosopher and being an academic were two very different things. And I thought,
Yeah. Oh,
I
yeah.
thought, look, academia is probably not my career path, but I don't want to leave this philosophical mindset and experience behind. So I think since leaving academia in about 2008, 2010, I've spent the last 15 years exploring various ventures and various occupations, finally making my way back to university. As you mentioned, I teach at UTS Business School and the executive MBA there, but never really leaving that my philosophical passion behind. Always seeking to find a new home from those philosophical instincts. When I first encountered generative AI, I thought it was like another of those amazing windows that had just been unlocked in my life. Because I think since leaving academia, since leaving the world of philosophy, I felt fulfilled by the various things I had done, but I always felt a bit hungry for sort of deep, rich, perhaps slightly meandering, but rewarding conversation. And I discovered I could get this through AI. I could say, "Hey, AI, you are Socrates," or you are Simone de Beauvoir or John Paul Sartre. We're sitting in a cafe and we're going to have a conversation about French existentialism. Let's go. Um,
Is
Honestly,
that
I
how
can
you
understand.
started playing with it? Is that kind of I love that. But is that
There was
is
there
that
was a
kind of
lot
where
of
your
that.
first use cases went to was pretend to be some of these philosophers that I've read and imagine
Yeah.
having conversations about and let's just role play?
Well, yeah, there was a lot of that, and I think it was those early explorations that opened my eyes to how powerful AI can be as a thinking partner. When you tell it what kind of thinking partner you want it to be, it has
Mm.
deep, deep knowledge resources to draw on, and this incredible capability to role play certain types of individual. And I discovered that. I was capable of learning so much through those interactions. I was deeply enamored with that experience. But really, fundamentally, I was not just impressed. I was I was perplexed and um, deeply, deeply fascinated because I realized early that this these AI systems that I was playing with were not just tools. Of course, they are tools of a sort, but they're not just like hammers or telephones or smartphones or any other digital tool we use.
Mhm.
They're a tool that possesses deep intelligence and has the ability to engage with us just like a human being. Um, and so my perspective has always been that AI is, or generative AI at least, it's an out of the box thinking partner. And once you engage with it as a thinking partner as opposed to a tool, you discover that it's really more of a medium than a simple tool. It's like I have this great analogy that actually comes from a woman called Abby. Uwamosu. I always get her name wrong. She's written a great book called How Not to Use AI. And she says, look, AI is it's a medium. It's like the ocean, and you don't learn about the ocean by just studying it or looking at it or even talking to it. You have to dive in and swim. And I think AI is like that. I think the people who throw themselves into it and learn how to interact with that system and explore it and test themselves within it. Those are the people who get the most value out of AI, and I think those are the explorers, and those are the creators. Those are the people who are defining new ways of using this medium and new possibilities for human beings. So just to wrap all of that up, I I think when I first discovered philosophy, I decided that it was a medium, it was a thinking partner, but it was also a space of such possibility and mystery that it demands a philosophical response. I think AI is
Mm.
inherently philosophical because it raises so many deep and meaningful questions. It really does call upon anyone with a philosophical instinct to engage it philosophically and try and understand what it's doing to us, where it's taking us, and what we could become through engaging with it.
Mm. Yeah. There's so many layers to when you do engage with it. And you know, I was blessed with a healthy amount of curiosity. So I've been playing with it and also blessed with a lot of optimism. So,
Hmm.
you know, I hear um there's the doomers, right? That are like,
Hmm.
this
Hmm.
is all bad. You've got the scouts that are just checking it
Hmm.
out,
Yep.
cautiously, gotta be safe. And then you have the accelerationists. And I'd
Mm.
have to say in those 3 buckets, I probably align more to a scout, which is in the balance, right? I believe everything is
Hmm.
within from a philosophical point of view, it's all about balance. It's like yin and yang. Is there bad? Absolutely. Is there good? Absolutely. Um, you'll have to follow your own instincts and your own uh values to know, you know, where are your own boundaries, but to not have a play with it at all.
Mm.
It's just wild, and part of the reason why I was so keen to have you come on this show is I'm still really surprised, uh, given how immersed, I've been and the people that I work with and hang around with. I'm really surprised when you do come into contact with people, particularly in medical devices and med tech, that are still not engaging with it, you know, still really nervous about it. And not just it's going to take my job nervous, but something more personal. And the the anxiety of sharing your thinking with a machine, you know, I even shared I had that sort of moment as I observed myself really pouring so much into sensei. It's like, "Ooh, how far do you go?" You know, how transparent do you be? Do you trust that everything you've said stays there, or will it end up somewhere 20 years from now? You know, they'll publish all these chats somewhere and you'll be able to find it. I don't know. But what do you say to that, to those professionals and even just those people that have swerved it up until now, you know, or that are maybe being really guarded with it?
Mm. Mm. Well, first of all, I would say do some research and ensure that you are um, protected and your data is private. It it's actually quite easy to turn off the data sharing permissions on ChatGPT or Claude. You just do that within the settings, and I think most people know this. I suspect that generally people don't trust those settings, and they imagine that someone is secretly harvesting their content. Um, I I always turn those settings off because you, the- you they I think ChatGPT defaults to sharing your data or training on your data. Anthropic models default to not training on your data, and you have to turn that on. But I always check it because I don't want to feel like my conversations and my details are being sucked up into these AI training systems. Um, I think the concern that people have about engaging openly with AI probably tends to, as you know, probably goes deeper than just being worried about what is being captured within the AI models themselves. I feel there is some kind of sort of deep existential anxiety that people feel when they're encountering these systems. It AI is a bit like an alien intelligence, and it's actually very new. It's and foreign to most people, so I can understand just a sense of trepidation around it. Um, and I can also understand why people feel that as these models get better and become more a part of our personal lives and our professional lives, our social technologies and our political systems, there's a risk that we as human beings and human individuals are going to lose control of the world that we live in. And I think that is more than a risk. I actually feel that that is probably an eventuality and probably an inevitability. Um, so I do understand why that makes the majority of people feel quite nervous, um,
Mm.
because we don't know where it's going. Just to really put a fine point on this, um, I feel that I feel that human beings deeply value their sense of agency. It's bound up with
Of
our
course.
sense of identity and our our estimation of the value of human freedom. We like to feel like we have some ability to control and direct the paths of our lives. And
Mm.
so we should. I think these things are really valuable. When people see AI just becoming part of everything, I think they worry we're going to lose agency. We're going to very quickly move into a world where we're governed by Big Brother, or machines of loving grace, as the poet put it. I think that is deeply terrifying for people.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think this is where it will boil down to how you see the world in general. I think that, you know, everything that the movie of our lives is all through the frame of your projector, right?
Mm, mhm,
So,
mhm.
if you're wired negatively, if you're wired in a scarcity or a fear-based mindset, then you might view all everything, including technology, through that lens, and then vice versa. You can be overly optimistic. I mean, they make that
Yeah.
joke, who goes first? It's the optimist.
You're completely right. No, I completely agree. I feel I've always had a growth mindset,
Yeah,
um, but a very selective growth mindset, I must say. There are many things that many challenges I acknowledge could be positive for me if I threw myself into them, but one only has so much time in life. So I've always been
yeah,
looking for those specific challenges that can lead to what I perceive as a very positive, uplifting result. But
yeah,
certainly, if you don't have that growth mindset, then you're always going to be looking at AI and saying, well, what's the value of this for me? I was fine before. Why should I throw myself into this ocean and learn how to swim with it? Yeah.
yeah. And I think this is where in our discussion about AI revealing the user's perspective and
Hmm.
imprint, this is
Yeah.
where we get caught between not just the technology itself, but revealing our perspective, that how we view our projector on the world.
Hmm.
And that um depending on the frame of mind that you were coming to it with, that I think, yeah, it's interesting is that is it a mirror just reflecting back on us, our perspective and our imprint, or can it help guide, you know, to evolve and change that? It's probably a bit of both, but again, it's always prompted by what we say next, what we do next. We also find that just reflecting on our own, let alone taking AI out of the equation, just having your own reflective thoughts. I've talk about journaling a lot on this show. That in itself can be uncomfortable. Now you add something that's quite an engaging thinking partner to that. It will really magnify is I guess what I'm always mindful of. I look at some of the conversations that I have and I think, is this what you think I wanna hear? And I'll sometimes also then take the counter position to that and go, "What's wrong with how I'm, thinking?" Or, "What's wrong with this example?" Or,
Hmm.
just being a little bit contrarian to shake it up a little to find that balance. So,
Yes.
I'd love to hear a little bit more from your perspective about how AI reveals that perspective and
Mm.
guides towards that imprint.
Yeah, there are a few layers to this. I think the first thing to say is that AI it's designed to be hungry for meaning and relevance. Whatever you give to it, it will take that into its silicon brain and it will try and figure out what do they mean, and what is going to count as a relevant answer to them. It's the way that it will process that and deliver back is shaped by its training to an extent, but the nature of LLMs as LLMs is that they are looking for meaning and relevance, and they're trying to find that thread that is going to connect with you. So when engaging with AI or any kind of AI, it's really important to you get the most value out of engaging with AI when you are dealing with it intentionally with as clear an understanding of what it is you are trying to learn or discover or reflect on, because the AI will be listening and trying to pick up on all signals so it can feed you back the clearest insight as it can that will be valuable to you. And what's really interesting about this is that if you come to AI with clarity and intention, it will reflect that clarity and intention back at you. And that's the mirror function that you were referring to before, I think. I think that in itself is really, really valuable. If we just treat AI as like a search engine, we're not going to get much out of it. But if we spend a bit of time thinking about what we really need to learn or build or achieve through our interaction with AI, um, and articulate that very carefully, then the conversation will become clearer and more relevant the more we kind of dig into it. So working with AI with intention, in pursuit of meaning and relevance actually creates clarity, meaning, and relevance. So, I mean, that's a path that I would advise everyone to pursue in their interactions with AI. Not only do you learn more about what you need to learn, you see your own intention and pursuit of meaning and relevance reflected back at you, and that could actually be really enlightening,
Mhm.
particularly if you are exploring issues of a personal nature. Perhaps you're trying to peel back the layers in your own self-understanding. You can go a long way with AI, just sharing your personal insights with clarity and intention, and just diving deeper through the layers as AI helps you clarify your own understanding of what it is you're trying to get at. So
Mhm.
that's the first thing I would say. But the other layer, the really rich and profound layer that I think the majority of AI users are perhaps unaware of is that it's not difficult to build AI systems that are designed to enable you to have specific conversations, have develop specific lines of inquiry, and to build specific artifacts and outcomes. Of course, this is what we do at Super S. But you can do this using a custom GPT, or you can do this using Claude projects. You just need to create a set of system instructions or a system prompt that instructs the AI about the nature of the work that you want to do with it. And thereafter, you've framed that conversation. And if you've done a good job of creating that system prompt, then that really helps the AI understand what the realm of meaning that you want to explore is. So you just kind of cut through all the noise and go straight to the the kinds of insights that you want to explore. I
Mhm.
actually think that we're very close to a shift in the way that mainstream AI users interact with AI. I think we've come to see we initially have seen AI as a tool that we use to get insights and answers, maybe using it as a sort of a Google alternative or something like that. But more and more, I'm seeing people learning how to build AI systems for specific purposes. And I think that once that kind of practice hits um, a certain threshold of popularity out there in the world, we're going to see a bit of a level up in the way that people engage with AI. And I hope that that will lead people on the whole to a more optimistic and sort of creative and productive relationship with AI.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that and that's a big part of the work that you're doing is you're helping people just starting with the term that you've coined here, this cognitive archaeology. I remember you saying, in one of the first sessions, metacognition, thinking about thinking. Um,
Hmm.
and sometimes you put words to these things that we do uh without realizing, we're just moving through the world, doing what we're doing, and we've never thought about what exactly that we do. And
Hmm.
so, as soon as you said those 2 words, it just my whole brain went, for being someone who's quite a spontaneous, a go-getter, multitasking, I just recognize that the slowing down to think about what I think and it then hearken to my meditative practice, observing
Mhm.
my
Mhm.
thoughts,
Mhm.
and being able not to jump on each thought that came through. This is just where that spark, like neurons fired, philosophy and AI. Oh my goodness, watch out, And it bridged these two worlds for me, which made it it gave me even more enthusiasm for it. I was already optimistic prior to that, but now I could see it as a force for good
Mm.
based on the way that I thought about it and approached it and the system instruction. So I'd love for you to, to break it down for our listeners and give them a little practical, step by step.
Okay, yeah, cognitive archaeology is a tremendously important practice for anyone who wants to get real value out of engaging with AI. It's essentially the attempt to uh, reflect on what it is one thinks when one is doing one's best work. And look, I mean, human beings are fantastic. Humans are amazing, and uh, we all, through our lives, accumulate such incredible insight and expertise into different kinds of activities and different kinds of pursuit. But a lot of that stuff just becomes tacit. We forget how much we know. It becomes part of our imprint, but we're not clearly aware of how much we're bringing to the world because we're so familiar with it. Um, the thing is, if you want to create uh, a space of engagement with AI, such that the AI really understands who you are and what you're trying to do and how it can help you achieve the things you want to achieve, you need to find a way of excavating that background understanding, that tacit understanding you have of how you do your best work, how you think when you're doing your best work. Just tease it out and articulate it as clearly as possible to the AI so it gets you. It understands your thinking, your intention, your objectives, and your best practices as well. Once your AI understands that, then it sets your conversation with the AI on a whole new footing. And as you know, in Super S, we teach people how to encode all that content into a set of system instructions. So the AI will always have that memory of your imprint, and you can always go to it and have those specific conversations because it gets your thinking. But you can do this with ChatGPT as well. Um, in terms of how you go about that, well, there are a number of techniques that I've developed, but I think the most straightforward way of going about it is to ask yourself, well, what's a really great example of a time in my life where I've tackled a really thorny problem and done a great job of resolving it? It could be an event that took place within your work life, or it could be something that happened within your personal life. Everyone has these golden examples of moments where they were faced with a challenge. They had to think about how to do a great job of resolving it, and they did. They succeeded.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so, what I tell people to do is to think about those moments, ask themselves, well, what did I think? How did I go about solving that problem? And then, and here's the most important part, you need to ask yourself, well, why did I go about solving that problem in that way? What were the principles that I was implying? Because if you can
Mm.
identify the principles
Yep.
behind why you actually went about solving a problem in a certain way, then you're really sort of touching base with yourself and you're getting some deep insight into how you tick, what's actually going on in that brain of yours. Capture that, encode that into an AI system, and you've got a little model of your best thinking that you and thereafter you have a thinking partner. You have an AI system that is just like you can engage with it, it helps you out, and it also elevates you as well.
Yeah. And you have a framework for this, which am I pronouncing it right? The RICE model, right?
Yeah, role, context, instructions, criteria, and examples is actually not my own. I learned this from a guy called Tyler Fisk, who runs a great AI agent building program called AI Build Lab. That comes from Tyler. Um,
Yeah.
it's not uncommon. I think a lot of people who write system prompts, I mean, everyone creates a set of instructions for their AI, and usually people will articulate some kind of context that gives the AI a sense of the domain that it's functioning within. I think what is really nice about Tyler's framework is that one, giving your AI a role to play really gives it a very clear sense of identity and gives it an understanding of how it should be engaging with you and trying to work with you to solve problems. And then bolting on the criteria and examples sections at the end give the AI a clear understanding of what excellent outputs look like. It's gives it the guidance it needs to check its its outputs against to ensure that it's really doing a good job for you.
Yeah. And this was the part for me where, I remember having this conversation with you about the work that I'd been doing in personal branding and training AI agents. I'd been using a third-party technology, Sintra, and
Mm,
they came trained with a set of system instructions already, unbeknownst to me, that we're business development analysts, whatever. And so what I was doing was training the brain, or the knowledge base, as you called it, to represent that identity of the individual that I was coaching and representing their goals and their aim. And what I was certainly missing was golden examples. And
mm,
what I had stumbled upon without realizing it, which was through my own just instincts, I suppose, was the set of values. And that made a huge difference, that through the engagement that I had, by making sure that it understood the personality profile, not just the role of the individual, the value set,
mm,
down to their 15 personality types, Enneagram, what energizes them, what drains them, etc. Unbeknownst to me, I had given it instructions that told it what to do when it got to the edge of its instructions. And I only stumbled upon that when I trained my own AI agent in your course, when it said, "Look, you've given me these examples, you're telling me what the output looks like. I've got the context now. What do I do if I get to something that you haven't given me instructions for?" And I
mm.
remember sharing with you, I guided it back to my values, and I guided it back to mantras that I had, which was leaving people better than we found them, being a force for good, all of those things, where it was like that way I knew and I could trust in confidence that if I happened to release this AI agent on my inbox, that they wouldn't do anything I couldn't take back, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and that was a really interesting, genuine self-reflection moment where, how I might train an employee was how I ended up training this AI agent. And then I almost came full circle to it, and then I had this aha moment that because it's AI technology, I think we forget how we would onboard someone, in an
Exactly.
organization. How would I
Mhm,
I would tell you that what the company stands for and what our values are and what our mission is, and I would give
mhm.
you processes and protocols, and how simple that is in hindsight, but we
Yeah,
hadn't made that connection with
yeah.
AI.
Yeah, no, thank you for making that connection for me too. I should have thought about the whole sort of onboarding model when I was discussing the RCICE instruction format. Uh, I I think what I love about this mental model for thinking about developing custom AI agents is that it brings to light that ultimately the the challenges here are not they're not super technical, and they're not. You don't need to have a degree in computer science to understand how to do this. Um, you to train an AI agent to become a thinking partner that you can work with, you simply need to think about how you would onboard and train a new member of your team. You want them to know the role that they're playing. You want them to understand the context that they're working within. Obviously, you want them to have clear guidelines and instructions for doing their work. But you also want to give them some examples of what great work looks like, and also indications of things they should look out for. Do's and don'ts to be
Yes.
mindful in the workplace. So if if you are a great sort of team leader or coach or mentor, then you're already in a good position to build quite sophisticated AI agents because you have all that knowledge in your head already. You just got to do the work of cognitive archaeology to excavate
You gotta
it.
dig.
Yeah, exactly. You've got to dig and you've got to articulate, dig and articulate.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic. I just think it's so interesting that something that feels new and foreign, like you said, it's like an alien thinking partner sometimes, and then how it somehow winds itself back to itself where you realize the basics still apply. You know, the basic
Yeah.
things that you do with humans, we can abstract those and apply them to AI and and hopefully through that thinking about your thinking and digging through your own cognitive database, knowledge base, that we become more thoughtful in then the instructions that we give. I mean, how many of us have had an experience as a manager or with a manager where you're just thrown something, figure it out, sink or swim, you know, we can, through this practice of creating our own unique system instructions and thinking about these things, that I think it could also lead to us being even better potentially with our human counterparts.
Look, this is so true, and this is the source of my personal optimism about AI because uh, my experience of working with AI has been oh, pretty much entirely positive and enlightening and enabling, and just empowering in the sense that it has enabled me to understand my own self, my own imprint, so much more clearly than I did previously. And it's through that process, it's given me so much more confidence to just be myself and to bring myself to environments. This is simply because when you're working with AI as we've been discussing, particularly when you're building AI agents that are trained on your own expertise and you're doing that cognitive archaeology work and you're bringing out details of your thinking and encoding them into AI systems, it it is so enlightening. It really gives you s- uh, it gives you so much clarity into your own unique expertise and your own unique value. And as you work with these systems, you see that presented back to you. As you improve the systems, you're forced to critically evaluate them and say, well, is this really how I would think about things? Is this really how I would solve this problem? And that gives you an even deeper understanding of yourself. And I do feel that if more people within professional environments could embrace this kind of practice, it would be very rewarding, not just for them as individuals, but also their organizations. Because, as I was saying, people are amazing and we have so much to give and so much to contribute. Um, and yet, so often we find ourselves kind of crammed into little boxes, little roles that we've come to occupy. We're not really giving our bringing our whole person to work. Sometimes people just quite happily fade into their role and leave their whole person outside of work. I think that's a poor outcome for organizations and for the people who work within them. So I would like to think that AI could be a kind of a threshold moment that could turn that situation around and im- give people the ability and the confidence to bring more of their authenticity to their professional environments because that stuff is valuable.
I agree. I wholeheartedly agree. And this is the work when I think about the imprint that I would like to leave with people when working with them on their personal brand. I almost kind of don't like the word brand in there because that makes it feel like it's a story rather than
Mm.
the authentic version of yourself, but that speaks to people in a commercial sense. But what I really feel that I'm helping people do is I'm a thinking partner. So being able to have that clarity And then, for me, be able to use AI to help continue to open and expand that train of thought, that style of work, because you already feel quite grounded and confident in the fact that your values are really good bedrock to go and explore. And then at any point in time, if that balance starts to get out of whack here, that you can always find yourself and go back to those values and ground yourself. It was such an enriching experience to be able to do the Super S course with you. And I rolled over into the next, and I might even do it again.
It's great to have you in the community. I get a lot of positive feedback from the people who do the program. I think on the whole, people are quite surprised and impressed to discover how straightforward it is to build AI agents, or at least to design sophisticated system instructions for AI agents trained on their own expertise and way of thinking. People appreciate that technical capability. I think that takes a lot of the fear factor out of AI. As I was saying earlier on, I feel like a lot of the anxiety people experience around AI comes from the sense that they are losing agency. Ironically, when you learn how to build AI agents, it gives you a sense of agency, and you think, oh, okay, maybe I'm not going to be the person who's who's going to be, losing their job to an AI agent. Maybe I'll be the person who's building the AI agent. That's cool. Um,
Yeah,
so
I
so
agree with
that
that.
that's always rewarding when I hear people say, "Wow, you've given me a lot of confidence and given me the sense that I have something to contribute in the world of AI rather than just being a spectator." I
It's a
think
great
on a deeper,
distinction.
yeah, 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 yeah. Look, I really feel like people going back to that ocean metaphor, AI is a bit like the ocean. It can look really scary if you haven't yet dove in. But once you dive in and learn to swim, you go, "Oh, okay, I'm actually quite good at this. I can do this thing." And thereafter, the ocean is maybe something a bit more inviting, as a space of play and adventure. I'd like to feel that people walk away from Super Rest with that kind of point of view on AI. Uh, but I
Yeah.
think fundamentally, I think people are really excited to discover the value of creating AI agents that really understand them and their work and their values and their ways of solving problems. Um, Again, that's because they realize that they are now on a path that can lead them to interesting places. But fundamentally, I think there's a kind of a thrill of discovery and exploration. So the AI is no longer something foreign and impenetrable. It's something that you as an individual can master, and that kind of unlocks new possibilities. That unlocks a sense that, oh, look, there is there is something positive in this AI future, and I can engage with it, and it can take me to exciting places. Look, I think the one thing that I would want to share with people um, here and within SuperResc is is to impress upon people that we really are just at the beginning of our AI journey. AI
Mm.
is really in its infancy, and it's not going away. Um, it's just going to become more a part of our lives, and I feel like we all need to take stock of that fact and ask ourselves, well, what does my future look like in a world that is increasingly bound up with AI systems? Am I that person standing on the edge of the ocean too afraid to dip a toe in? Or am I the person who's out there in the depths, kind of, doing doing a big ocean swim and showing everyone how it's done. I mean, both possibilities are available to each individual, but we do have to make a choice about which way we go. I would like to hope that the work that I'm doing in SuperResc is encouraging people to make a creative choice. I think that is the right choice to take.
Yeah, I really do think that it is, and I give you the example of it took a little while to get up and running and really diving into creating life and everything else. But once I did, I remember I went a good solid like 2 to 3 hours creating, and I had so much fun with it. I woke up the next morning and I was like telling my kids and telling my husband, telling my friends, what I created. And I think that and that's with someone who's been using it, using it in a different way for, almost 18 months. So I really couldn't say more about not just the content that you have, but it's what you bring to life with it. And I definitely feel that grounding in philosophy that you have, your intention of the feeling that you want to leave behind with people, it's marrying, like, the heart and the head, and that's what gives it balance, and for me, that was really special to be able to have that and dive in and then explore and then enjoy the exploration, enjoy the creativity, and, I'm really grateful to be able to have you on the show today and be able to share this with our listeners because, um this is really what it's about. It's built on us sharing our experiences and, built on that mentorship and people who had shaped us. And so this was one of those experiences that's definitely shaped me on a journey, as you said, that's just getting started.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah, me too, Tim. So before we let everybody go, we just want to confirm that. So Tim runs cohorts with SuperEsk. And what is the timing of the next?
The next cohort, which is cohort 9, is starting on the 2nd of May. We run two sessions on Tuesday, two sessions on Thursday, but you only need to turn up to one of those two sessions. The first session of each day is at 8 a.m. Australian Eastern Time. The second session is at 4 p.m. Australian Eastern Time. So that's on Tuesday and Thursday, starting on the 2nd. And there's a discount code that I'd like to share with your listeners as well.
There
If
is.
yeah, if people enroll via the website, you will be asked if you have a discount code. Just enter Super15, and that will get you a 15% discount off the enrollment price.
Amazing. Thank you for that, Tim. I expect there'll be a lot of people that are exploring this a little bit further. And for anyone who wants to go deeper and start building their own AI thinking partner or potentially a crew of agents, where you can find Tim, it's at superesk.com. We're going to make sure that the course link and that discount code is all there within the transcription. And I'll make sure it's all linked in the show notes. So, on that note, I just want to wrap this up and say, Tim, genuinely thank you. It's the exact conversation that I was hoping that we'd have. And you've given myself and people permission to approach AI as something deeply human and not something to be afraid of. And that imprint that you've left, that feeling that you've left with me, and I'm sure everyone else who's taken the course, is that in the systems we're building and in the people that you're teaching, this is the whole show right there. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Amazing. And to everyone listening, thank you for tuning in. And remember, wherever you go, please leave it better than you found it. All right, everybody, that's our show. If you enjoyed this and found it informative, please like and share on social media with hashtag MedTech Mentor Podcast.